Hey guys, Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who Classic. Last time around we had The Horns of Nimon. What was that one about?
Well, it was, I guess we found out it's kind of a space age version of Theseus and the Minotaur, or Minotaur, however we pronounce it. It really didn't come off that way. If it was meant to be that, it was very heavily disguised. And other than that, the details of it, again, very busy week at work, so if you want to explain further what happened, I would be happy to listen.
Yeah.
There
was this civilization that was sacrificing people from another civilization.
That's right.
To this Nimon guy, and he didn't really, he just kind of used them for nutrients. He didn't actually need them for his plan, but his whole plan was to bring more of his species to the planet and take it over, and then eventually they would move on to another planet. And they kept doing this, and the Doctor and Romana were involved in some degree. So
that's basically it, yeah.
Yeah, and it is a story that the Doctor Who fandom does not hold in high regard. So that's at least like the comfort of all of that. So today we are watching the first 3 episodes of Shada, the missing episode. So whenever I see any of you comment, well, when I watched this in 1980, I'm just going to reply and say, well, see, no, you simply didn't, because it didn't air in 1980. But you might have watched it in 1997 or whenever the first version of this actually came out. So at that point, I won't reply to that. Anywho, but yeah, so normally there are a couple versions of Shada. There's the just pure reconstruction route, which sounds dreadful.
We've done that many, many times back in the first Doctor's era.
Yeah. And there is the animated version, animated hybrid version that we're going to be watching today. And yeah, so basically it'll be interesting to see when these will cut together and everything between the live action parts that they did shoot in 1979 and the reanimated parts that they did in, 2017 or something. But I'm pretty sure that, at the very least, I know it has Tom Baker. I'm pretty sure Lalla Ward came back as Romana. I think the only thing missing is I think the actor who was voicing K9 at the time has passed on. So I don't know if they cut K9 bits or they just get a new actor or something. But yeah, and there's also different versions of this sort of hybrid version of Shada, and the one that's generally sold on BritBox, on Amazon, on Blu-rays, on everything is the full thing, basically 1 2-hour plus movie. I went out of my way not to do that because that doesn't sound good. I've actually heard that other reaction channels, either they skip Shada altogether or they just split the movie in half. I went the extra mile, and actually let me go get it. The only place that you can get the episodic version of Shada is through this bulky Blu-ray set, Tom Baker Season 6, which correlates to Season 17 overall. So I had to buy this in order to get Shada, and it's great that I had to buy a season that I don't particularly care for anyway. It does have City of Death, and we like City of Death.
That's wonderful.
Creature from the Pit was okay. Nightmare of Eden exists, and the Horns of Nimon doesn't. But yeah, so I went out of my way to get Shada on this. And I would also just like to point out that each disc in here is only 1 episode. Now this is going to get a bit technical for a second because Blu-rays are meant to hold a lot of information. And these are generally 4-parters that are 24-minute episodes. I've seen my my Breaking Bad Blu-rays have more than that. Now, I haven't checked on here if each disc has 25 commentaries, a bunch of behind the scenes or stuff. Even still, I don't think that necessarily warrants all of this. So That's just a little commentary on how the BBC sells their Blu-rays. So, now technically, we are not actually watching this on the Blu-ray today, but we are watching it on the Blu-ray today. And this is only going to matter to me, but I'm going to say it anyway because it's annoying. I have done Blu-ray stuff in the past. That's how I watched most of Attack on Titan. That's how I tried watching Prison Break, but if you have followed my Prison Break reactions, you will know that I had a lot of troubles getting my Blu-ray player to work. So what I did on Sunday was I simply just popped Shada into my Blu-ray player, and I just let all 4 episodes play while I recorded the footage on my screen capture software. And then I took that, chopped it up into the 6 video files I need, and that's how we're watching it today, because I knew that if I tried using the actual Blu-ray here and now, something would screw up, and it just would not be fun for me. So
live television.
Exactly. We'll do it live. So that's the whole struggle.
Weird Bill O'Reilly reference there.
Yeah, it's one of those things that like every year, like once a year, somebody on the internet will reference that. I don't know if I've actually watched that full clip.
I've seen that,
but I know what the clip is. So, anywho, so that's the whole thing of how we're watching Shada today.
Now, let me understand this. There was some kind of strike.
Yes, I think it was a writer's strike.
Okay, so if it was a writer's strike, was the script not finished? And if so, how did they end up finishing the script?
I think... See, I'm not sure, because also, as I was having things recorded, I would look away, because I didn't want spoilers, but I would look back every so often just to make sure everything was still working as I was recording it. And even in the first episode, I would see a swap to animation, and I thought, well, that's very interesting, because you would think, whenever this writer's strike happened, it must have been in the middle of the episode. So at what point do they film certain scenes that some of them, even in the first episode, already had to be animated?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not sure if the full script was written or not. I know this is the last script by Douglas Adams. But I don't know if it's supposed to be, if the full thing was done, or if he came back with everyone else in 2017 and finished it.
I thought he had passed away by then.
I mean, I don't know. The only thing I could also think is, because there was a reconstructed version without all the animation and everything, and I think that was in the late 90s, so that must have had the complete thing. So...
Yeah. Because that's always kind of puzzled me, that if there was a writer's strike, it seems very odd that they wouldn't have had the script finished before they started filming.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe if it was a production strike, that would make more sense, because that way the script would be finished and they would have to shut down production of the script. But then the thought was, once the strike was over, why they didn't just go ahead and finish it and, like you said, stitch it all back together. So This is kind of an odd situation here.
Well, because even then, because this is the last story of season 17, I guess I don't know, because they do film things out of order. I think actually Nightmare of Eden was the first episode they shot with the new Romana, and then they went back and did Destiny of the Daleks and stuff, so that adds a whole other layer onto it. But if this was the last thing they filmed, and they had the writer's strike, and they were like, well, we're just going to have to end the season on the Horns of Nyman, but you already have some of it filmed, why would you not just then finish filming all of it and just put it at the top of season 18?
Yeah.
So, yeah,
please enlighten us.
Yeah, we would like the story of what happened to Shada. So, but yeah, this is our technically last missing episode. It just happens to be, what was the last reconstructed episode? Was it the Space Pirates, I think?
It was a long time ago, yeah.
I think it was the Space Pirates, because that was the penultimate episode of the Troughton era, and all of the War Games was completely filmed. So, and the only other thing was like Invasion of the Dinosaurs had like its first episode was in black and white because they lost all the color prints of it. So yeah, but it's certainly been a while since we've had a missing episode of Doctor Who. So, yeah, I don't know. I will be curious to see. And of course, this is all on top of, is this a good story or not? I haven't heard anything. Like, nobody's actually talked to the quality of the story of Shada itself. Just the fact that it was a missing episode.
The only thing I remember is they used a couple of clips in The Five Doctors, and the Doctor and Romana are punting on the river outside of Cambridge, something like that. Yeah. It may have been in London, but I just remember them rowing, and then the Phantom Zone triangle or rectangle comes down and swallows them up.
Yeah. So which that also just means, even though they never aired this episode, they obviously kept the footage, but they actually did keep that footage, which I guess, by the time, I guess that's the whole point, is the reason there are no more missing episodes from the Third Doctor on is the BBC finally realized they need to start keeping these episodes. So you can release them on VHS for a good fee. So yeah, we're very curious about the behind the scenes of all of this. And honestly, it'll be interesting. I would imagine like the last 2 episodes might just be completely animated at that point. So we'll have to see. All right. Why don't we just go ahead and jump right into Shada?
Let's do it. Cross between 2001 and Deep Space Nine.
Well,
using Roman numerals?
That's a very inconvenient way to have a countdown.
There was no 0 in the Roman numerals. Ah, yes. Back in the time where you didn't have to lock your bike.
I remember there was a show talking about how you can't have a big pickup truck in the UK, because every time you stop at a light, someone's just going to come and take your stuff.
You just happened not to notice that?
When you get to my age, you'll find the time doesn't matter too much. Not that I expect you'll get to my age.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. I remember.
Is that a threat?
Milk?
Oh, yes, please.
1 or 2?
2, please.
Sugar?
Huh.
Here we are.
Isn't it wonderful how something so primitive can be so...
Kristen?
No, simple. You just push in one direction, the boat goes in the other. Oh, I do love the spring. All the leaves, colours.
It's October.
I thought you said we were coming here for May week.
I did. May week's in June.
I'm confused.
So is the TARDIS. I think it's about time we went to see if the professor's back in his room. Ask me how.
How?
With every reaction, there's an opposite and equally difficult action.
And of course, nobody notices a guy with shoulder epaulets and a silver cape walking around in modern-day England.
Well, you gonna go back for the poll? Well, I'm sure you can justify some headcanon. He forgot the poll because he spent the last, 5 days trapped in the 5 Doctors. Oh. That was a good transition.
Yes, the old turntable. Reel-to-reel tape recorder.
And a box.
Here we are. St. College, Cambridge.
You know the funny thing about animation? They never do shots that Doctor Who would actually do. But good transitions.
Someone whose name escapes you completely.
All the outdoor sets.
Well,
Wilkie. How did you know I wanted to speak to Professor Kenotis?
Because that's who you asked for when you were here in 1964, 1960, and 1955, sir.
Did I really? I was here in 1958.
Were you, sir?
Yes. But in a different body.
Yes.
Come along, Doctor.
Nice to meet you, Wilkie. Bye-bye.
Wilkin a Time Lord?
No, I think he's just part of the staff.
This is Romana.
Oh, delighted, delighted. I've heard so much about you.
Have you really?
Well, not yet, but I will have done. When Time Lords get to my age, they tend to get their tenses muddled up. Would you like some biscuits too?
Well, I wouldn't have said no.
Crackers?
And of course, kid walks right past, doesn't stare. Oh, there he goes. Finally turns around to politely look. Put it in a microwave. Extra. All right.
You know how I love my books, Doctor.
Professor, you said you brought it back by accident.
An oversight. I overlooked the fact that I had decided to bring it. Just for study, you know. And as I'm now getting very old...
You thought that perhaps I'd take it straight back to Gallifrey for you.
Well, as I'm retired, I'm not allowed to have a TARDIS.
Professor, I don't want to be...
That doesn't stop the Doctor.
He has no more power than the others. Only one has the power I need. And when I have the book, that power shall be mine. Get me the carrier ship.
Kind of thought you could show more than just the Fourth Doctor.
Soon, and then let the universe prepare itself.
What is your command, Master?
Alrighty.
All right then.
Well, so far, it's not the most exciting thing in the world, but it's somewhat
intriguing.
Yeah, it's certainly better than last episode. So,
All right, so the old professor has literally been there for 300 years,
yeah.
and nobody notices because as other people grow older and die off, the younger people just assume he's already been there, and they don't notice that he doesn't grow older, and then when they all die off, the new generation comes in. He's, like you said, it's just, that's the way it is here at Cambridge, and you stay out of the way, and nobody notices that you've been here for 3 centuries.
Yeah, that's actually a plot point they recycle for the Doctor himself with the 12th Doctor. He goes and works at this university for like 100 years, but he always just looks the same. He's Peter Capaldi, and they say, oh, some say he's been here for 20 years, 30, some even say 97 years. But nobody knows for sure. So yeah. So that's at least a really interesting thing, having another Time Lord, or retired Time Lord there.
So the 2 questions are, first of all, who is the young man who asked for the book?
Yeah.
And then, who is this guy from space wearing the, silver lame suit and cape and hat?
Yeah.
Now, again, in the early 70s, especially in London, that outfit would have gone unnoticed because people dressed that way just to be different. But in the early 80s, and the late 70s, early 80s, yeah, walking around in Cambridge dressed like that, there would have a lot of people been staring.
Well, yeah.
We also never found out what happened to the guy in the car.
I thought about that later. I was like, because there was that moment where they take off and then he suddenly screeches to a halt, and I thought, did I miss something, like him getting thrown out or something?
Yeah.
But I don't know. It might have just been a simple thing we missed. But yeah, I don't know. And I will say that one shot where there was just tons of people and he was just driving through, I was like, man, that's kind of a risky shot to get. So, and then going back to the behind the scenes stuff, it's interesting, again, just seeing like, okay, what was the filming process of Doctor Who? Because already in episode 1 there's animated stuff, but it's very simple animated stuff. Like, they just didn't get any shots of Parsons at his house analyzing the book and everything, and then the last shot being just the guy in his spaceship. But other than that, the rest of the episode is fine. But it's like, okay, so why didn't they have that yet? And the only thing I can think is maybe the next week, or a later week, they were going to build up this spaceship set and be like, all right, this is, we're just going to take the whole week. We're going to shoot everything we need in this spaceship. We have all the sets. we'll take it down. So it seems like they're not shooting just episode by episode.
Yeah.
They are filming different things in different parts of the story.
The way I was trying to figure it out, they were shooting mostly the scenes with Tom Baker and Romana.
Yeah.
They have the one scene in the spaceship and the one scene with the professor and the young man. So it seems to me that they were trying to get Tom Baker and Lala Ward, get their stuff out of the way, and then again go back and try to patch in some of the other stuff.
Yeah, so it's just that they never got around to that. So yeah, it is pretty interesting. And I will say, again, the animation, because I don't even remember the last time we had an animated episode of Doctor Who. It's one of those, again, where it's like, yes, it's not, Disney animation, Beauty and the Beast, Lion King from years ago. It's serviceable, it's passable. It is still funny that whoever animates this never actually replicates a shot from Doctor Who. Like, there are shots, like, I can see some of it where he's just at the table. You just have a shot of him at the table, and you have a string or something just pulling the book along and him messing with it. But some of the shots where, like, he goes over and there's this big swing over, doesn't really seem like a shot they would have done in Doctor Who. So I don't know. It's an interesting sort of thing, seeing how are they trying to match it and how are they not really trying to match it. But that's just a technical thing. It doesn't affect the overall quality of the story. It's just something, an interesting thing to keep an eye on.
It would be interesting if you'll roll the credits here. Maybe they'll give a name to the alien guy. Skagra. So they are Krargs.
Krargs, I guess. Well,
Skagra.
Yeah, so... now, there was also, I just remembered, on the Blu-ray, there was an introduction to this episode by Tom Baker. It's the one thing I didn't record, because I was so desperate to try to get the episodes recorded that I forgot about it. I don't imagine we're missing too much. The only other thing, because I don't know if it'll explain, if he explains some of it or not. So maybe we'll watch that before, at the top of next episode, basically. But yeah, I also didn't know if there were going to be, like, if he was going to say something about the plot. I don't imagine that he would, but just in case. So, it's also interesting, because normally when they do the animations, they still have the audio to work with, and that's what they animate over.
Yeah.
Here they have to remake everything about it.
And in the ancient days of Rassilon, 5 great principles were laid down. Can you remember what they were, my children?
It's just a Gallifreyan nursery book.
I know it is. Very good.
I had it when I was a time tot.
Oh, that's just a memento, not the right book at all.
That book dates back to the days of Rassilon.
Does it? Yes, indeed.
It's one of the artifacts.
Is it indeed?
Professor, you know that perfectly well. Rassilon had powers and secrets that even we don't fully understand. You've no idea what might have been hidden in that book.
There's no chance of anyone else understanding it then, is there?
I only hope you're right. But we'd better find it. Romana?
Yes.
Little red book?
5 by 7.
Good, good.
Could be green. No, I'm not mad.
All words and no actions.
Well, that's not true. What about Saliavin?
Saliavin? Oh, yes, Saliavin. He was a boyhood hero of mine.
Really, Doctor? A great criminal, your hero.
Yeah, well, a criminal, yes, but he had such style. Such flair, such...
Panache.
Yes, he's a bit like me in that respect.
No, it doesn't begin with A. B, 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 B.
C?
D.
BBC.
What's it called?
Called? How should I know? Keeley, this book.
Claire.
This book will do for science what the Japanese did to Pearl Harbor.
What? Vomit?
What?
Feels like paper.
What,
Smells like
what was that supposed to mean?
Tastes like paper.
Change everything, I guess.
I guess.
Not only can't I tell what the structure is, it actually doesn't seem to have a structure.
The clock
Pure
seems to have gone
matter.
backwards.
Non-atomic
Wasn't it like 10
matter.
after 1 the last time we saw it?
Can't have matter
Well, it was
without
freaking
atomic
out for a little bit,
structure.
but then went
It's
back to,
fundamental.
10 after
I
1.
can't explain it.
More tea, my dear.
Lovely. 2 lumps. No sugar.
2 lumps of what? Those lumps are sugar.
I guess lumps of milk.
Ew. Curdled milk. They stole this for the Star Trek 4 movie.
Now see, they could get this shot, but they couldn't get the shot last episode.
Toasting a muffin over the wall heater.
Oh, dear.
What's the matter?
We've run out of milk.
Oh, I should think that's the least of our problems.
I do feel so stupid losing that book.
Don't worry. We'll find it.
I hope so. I do hope so.
It makes you wonder how old he really
I'm
is,
shivering. Are you cold?
No, it's just...
and if he's on his last
his
regeneration or
voices
not.
unnerve me.
Cup of hot tea will do you good. Oh, splendid. Type 40, isn't it? Yes. Came out when I was a boy. That shows you how old I am.
I shan't be a moment.
Oh, yes, you will. Kitchens are too far from the control chamber.
I've never known the doctor use them anyway.
Oh. Saliaving. Good riddance to him, saliaving. Good riddance. Ah, undergraduates. Come in.
I did write down Sally Avon, just in case he comes back.
What do you know about the Panopticon?
The book, Professor. You are to give it to me.
On whose instructions?
Mine, Professor.
Who are you?
My name does not concern you.
But it's probably Sally Avon.
The book.
I've got the milk. Professor?
Coming, mistress.
Professor?
She closed the door.
He got out really fast.
Hurry up.
I was gonna say, and he was never seen again.
What was that?
Oh, should be the results of the carbon dating test I ran.
The old
It's
traction feed predator.
20,000 years old, Doctor.
Look at that.
A minus sign. Minus 20,000 years.
Not only is this book not a book, but time is running backwards over it. I think I'd better return it as soon as possible. Don't you?
I was gonna say, did that have a purpose, or did he just like to snap?
Scarecrows. Beware. Shada. The secret is in the...
He is dying, mistress.
Professor!
All life function has now ceased, mistress. The professor is dead.
That's just incredibly frustrating.
Very interesting special effect there.
Oh, great. I almost wonder if they just had the shots and it's this new version that is now added in the ball. Alrighty, that is part 2. Actually, now that I think about it, that last shot of the Doctor there, I think that was also used in the 5 Doctors at the end. So, what's unfortunate about the Professor, he's an interesting character.
Yeah.
Obviously he didn't have a lot of his memories because he just had a bad memory, but he definitely reminded me of Sean Connery in The Last Crusade. So, even just down to his look.
Yeah.
So, just a little bit more hair. So, but yeah. So the book... Okay, they'll explain this later in full, but the book is negative 20,000 years old.
So it's from the future.
Well, yes, but at the same time, if it's something that's brought back in time, it would still be as old as it was. I don't know. Because the doctor said something about, time is kind of reversing itself on the book anyway.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. And which they did show a shot of it where he was trying to mess with the book and the clock was going crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. And I guess we already know the guy's name is Skagra. Was that it?
Yeah.
So I guess it's probably not the other prisoner that they clearly hinted at, 1,000 times, to where it's like, okay, they got to bring this up at some point, but I don't know. But I do like just a little bit more of, I guess, the Doctor's childhood, because we had the whole thing with the third Doctor of, he went to the hill and he met the old Time Lord Hermit and stuff, and now we have Salavian, who specifically inspired the Doctor, even though he was a criminal. So it's interesting stuff.
Yeah, he made him out to be not just a petty criminal, but someone who obviously has a lot of flair and a lot of style in whatever it is he's trying to steal. So, I mean, obviously he's not stealing for, he's not stealing money, he's not stealing, he's stealing because that's what he does. He's good at it.
Yeah. More of a Robin Hood than anything else. So, I also did like when the professor mentions the Type 40 TARDIS, that it came out when he was a boy. That shows you how old he is and how old the TARDIS is, honestly. But the TARDIS certainly works a lot better than his memory did. But yeah, it is one of those things where it's like, because I'm going off of the little bits of Time Lord lore that they have dropped over 17 years, that again, I don't know if they fully have written everything down.
Yeah.
I don't know how much Douglas Adams is taking into account when he writes some of these little things, but it's like, okay, if he has 2 hearts, that means he has regenerated then. So it makes me think, is this supposed to be his last regeneration then? Because otherwise, why wouldn't you regenerate into a younger body that can remember things?
Yeah.
Honestly, we're not even sure, how old he is compared to the Doctor. So, I don't know. I guess it doesn't matter anymore, though. He's dead now, unfortunately.
I love the long shot where the ball just smacks some old lady on the head.
Well,
what's there in the lower bonk?
Makes you wonder if that just happened, and they just decided, we'll make it to where the ball did that. Like, that wasn't planned.
No. He could have broken that window with his elbow and gone inside.
He has a screwdriver.
And wouldn't the screwdriver unlock the lock on this gate?
Yeah.
Doctor! Shh! Hurry!
Coming.
He took the collar, too.
Professor.
Oh, this poor guy.
Ooh, that's gotta be cold.
What is that machine?
It displays the characteristics of a Gallifreyan time capsule, my lord. Type 39, possible Type 40.
Present whereabouts?
It is currently in close proximity, my lord. Warning, my lord. Intruders are approaching the ship.
Show me.
So then he's not a Time Lord.
Better than an old police box.
K9, any sign of that deranged billiard ball?
Master?
The gaggleback, the beastie.
The sphere, K9.
Negative, mistress.
Ramona, I'd feel much happier if you 3 waited outside. No point in all of us walking into the spider's web.
I'll stay. You might need help.
Well, if it's...
Oh, they built this set.
Blast it.
Please duck.
I think that was just a phrase.
Wish I could get out of here.
That's it.
Please explain.
Well, that's what you have to say. I wish we could get out of here. I wish we could get out of here.
It wasn't,
Oh,
but it was a
I
good
wish we could get
try.
out of here. Oh, blast.
But it's going to blast.
No, K9. Good dog.
It's another TARDIS.
It wasn't, was it? The trick on those occasions is not to resist. I just let the thing believe I was stupid, so it didn't pull nearly hard enough. It got a copy of my mind, but left me with the original intact. Understand?
No. Their release would constitute a threat to Scabra.
But I'm ordering you to. And as we have established the fact that I am dead, that I'm incapable of ordering anything that would threaten Skagra. So, if I were to order you to release them, it can't threaten him. Will you release them now?
They will be released.
Excellent. Thank you.
It's not so much out-logicking a computer as just out-stupiding it.
I have shut down the oxygen supply. Dead men do not require oxygen.
Alrighty. That's part 3. And we'll watch the rest next week.
So, this is really intriguing in that it is really one of the best scripts of this season. Again, it's very convoluted, but it's easy to follow. We're not exactly sure who Skagra is or who the, what were they, Kragras or what?
Yeah.
Somebody. We're not sure what his objective is, other than the book will supposedly help him find it. There's lots of Douglas Adams humor in here. So when the strike was over, you look at this and go, why didn't you go back and film it and just tack it on to the 18th season?
The only thing I can think is that he left after season 17. And because if he didn't come back for the next season, nobody was comfortable finishing the story. So that's the only thing I can think. And then it was only years later, after the show got canceled, basically, that he came back and they did a version of Shada in a more reconstructed form, and eventually giving us the hybrid animated form.
Well, that doesn't bother me. I mean, it's not, like you said, it's not the greatest animation in the world, but it allows us to follow the story a lot better than some of the early animations do, because in those, it's like certainly the backgrounds don't move, and they don't really look like the characters as we remember them. The Ben and Polly with the second Doctor with Troughton don't look at all like Ben and Polly.
Yeah, I think it also just helps that it's not fully animated, so because it's half and half, you have something that you can always fall back on that you remember. And I will say, when we talk about, it's not the greatest animation in the world, it's not like Doctor Who had the greatest cinematography in the world either. It was okay, but it was also, a British children's television show in 1979, and that's only where we are now. We used to watch the version from 1963, so all of that is completely fine. I think it's a problem. Just the one slight problem with the animation is, I feel like Doctor Who has a lot of moments where just a scene just kind of starts, and then just nothing's really happening. It's kind of being filled in, by whatever the Doctor is doing. And sometimes, when you have actors like Troughton and Tom Baker, they can go around, they can do 10,000 ridiculous things and not say a word, and it's fine. But nobody can quite replicate the dumb things they do when they're not talking. So it can be kind of, there'll just be a little bit where there's silence. Not much is really happening, because that would be a moment where Tom Baker would be rummaging around and doing something.
Yeah.
So, but other than that, it is completely fine.
All right, so in addition to still not knowing who Shada is, we also don't know who is it, Salayan?
It was Salavan.
Salavan.
Yeah.
So there's still obviously a lot to come to finish out this story, but they've hinted at it, and so we're going, so how does this all tie in? I'm hoping the Salavan is not a red herring, that they mention him once and then talk about his panache. I would like to see that he comes back at some point.
Yeah, so, like, maybe he's, they said, he was arrested before the Doctor was born. That doesn't mean he's dead.
Yeah.
And if he was a former Time Lord, then he could live. I mean, at the very least, he'd probably be as old as the Professor was. So, I guess it could be something like maybe Skagra is trying to help him. Maybe he's just a servant of him. Now, adding on top of that, the Krarg, which is kind of one of the worst names they've ever come up with. It's just, what are these aliens called? Krarg. Go with that. But anyway, that's just a minor point. But yeah, so to also have that as a sort of mystery, but we already know they work for Skagra, so it's like there's a couple mysteries here, but
And then the oldest mystery of this entire episode is, remember there were like 5 other guys with Skagra at the very beginning. Where are they?
Yeah, that's true.
We didn't see them again.
Yeah, because they did get up. Now, what I can assume is maybe he took their minds as well with the sphere. I guess it doesn't confirm whether or not they're Time Lords. I guess they're probably not, because he's not.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem to be a Time Lord, although he can read Gallifreyan specifically.
Yeah.
He said he can read Gallifreyan. I guess he just doesn't know the code for the book itself, and only a Time Lord would know that. But if you have the memories of the Professor already, you would almost wonder, why would he then need the memories from the Doctor as well?
And Skagra did escape from the orbiting space station, leaving the others behind.
Yeah.
But again, that's a loose end that I hope at some point they will say, oh yeah, here's where I escaped from and took their minds and so forth.
I imagine they would have to go back to that, because they were, even if some of their minds were taken, they did get up. They were still alive. So yeah. And then we've got the book. I didn't exactly write down what it was called, but it was like the wordful and lawful, laws of Gallifrey, or something like that. The way too wordy book of Gallifrey. I don't know.
And then Romana recited the Pledge of Allegiance to the Gallifreyan laws.
Yeah, I guess the code that I guess when you're sworn in as a Time Lord, I guess, maybe, or when you graduate from the Academy. I don't know. Because they never fully give us, they show Time Lords, but I guess we never get a full overview of society on Gallifrey. There's the really higher up, Gallifreyan Time Lords. You got the President, the Chancellor, and some of the other bigger lords that are there, but we never see what are normal people like. We got some of the barbarians that one time, but that was just kind of weird.
And then the guy who was the mechanic.
Yeah, that's true. We did get the Time Lord mechanic. Drax, I think, was his name. So, and we get a bit of. Other than that, we just hear bits and pieces from the Doctor's past. He was a normal kid, and there was the old hermit on the mountain that he went and talked to. Who eventually we did meet, didn't we, at the end of the Third Doctor's era, and then now we have Salavan, who is seemed to be a renegade Time Lord criminal. Now, it's also an interesting thing because you mentioned, he's probably not just a petty thief or anything like that, but it makes you think about that in relation to the Master as well.
Yeah.
Because the Master kind of takes that role as well. It's just that, well, obviously he's about the same age as the Doctor. They kind of grew up together, went to the academy. But at the same time, I guess it's just the Master, it's not just, some sort of Robin Hood thing. For the Master, he tries to conquer people. He always tries to conquer or destroy Earth, whichever one he feels like that week. So yeah. Let's see. We had Gallifreyan Morse code, which was interesting. Beating both of the hearts in rhythm like that. And then I actually didn't write down a ton of notes on the plot itself, because I mean, the basic plot so far has been there's a book, it's dangerous, guy has book, go get book, captured. That's essentially been the plot so far. It's interesting, but it's kind of what we've had so far. I guess it's really just, on the one hand, I'm looking at this plot, about the book. On the other hand, I am looking at just every single time they cut back to animation, and I think, okay, why didn't you get this shot? Why didn't you get this shot? They clearly, it's a matter of what is filmed at what time. So they never built the set for this spaceship, but they did build the set for the prison, the brig inside of there, because they were able to have that. So it's just kind of interesting seeing, or they'll have, a couple shots of Parsons on his bicycle, but then there's another shot where it's like, well, wait a minute, that shot was animated.
Yeah.
So why didn't you shoot all of the bicycle scenes at the same time? So, and I did see, when I was looking for how we could watch this, I did see a couple people saying that, while this is, it's all good, it's all fine, you can hear a difference in their voices, especially with, the latest recordings where, everyone's pretty much 40 years older. But I will say Tom Baker's voice itself is not too different.
No.
Like, you can hear just a little bit, like he doesn't say things quite the same way as I think he would have in 1979. But for the most part, I don't think, you would necessarily hear it. We had like one or two lines, I think, from Romana in the animation. And as I was listening to that, I was like, that sounds pretty different. So, but it's just small little things. And I think, because I know there are supposed to be scenes with K9. I don't know if they cut them out or if they got a different voice or anything, but they couldn't use the original voice from this season because the actor died. So I think in that one little piece where they're going through the hallway and K9 says something, I think it was just a simple line that they could have just recycled from anywhere, even in this episode. So yeah. So just looking at the technical side of this is just really, really interesting.
Yeah.
So, and it's something we just haven't done in like 10, 11 seasons since the last time we watched a animated or reconstructed episode. And it's far more interesting than the reconstructed episodes where, it's like, yes, here's, some still images and some of the terrible, like the Space Pirates was probably the worst because of the weird still images, yet still CG people that didn't look that great. So the animation here is definitely better than that, at least. Yeah. So, but yeah, and again, it's also just interesting, just like how it's made, how the audio is recorded, because it's very different from the previous animated episodes where they still had all that audio to work with. They just had to animate over it. Now they have to, the audio quality is very different from the live action segments because, it's Tom Baker in a recording booth with soundproofing everywhere, and he's got his microphone right in front of him, and then you add in all the sound effects later, which I know that's exactly just what animation is, but it's just contrasting that with how everything was recorded in 1979 is just interesting. But anyway, do we have anything else on the on the actual episode itself, the story.
No, again, very intrigued. Looking forward to seeing the end of it next week.
Yeah, because we've hinted at Shada itself, but we don't know what Shada is at this point. And we don't really know too much about Skagra, other than he's not a Time Lord, but he knows what Time Lords are, and he knows the book will give him some sort of power. Yeah. So yeah. At the very least, it's interesting, and because there's also, we've had previously, I've seen some comments say that that they don't like how much screen time the Time Lords actually get, because it kind of demystifies the Time Lords. You know, when they first show up in the war games, they're absolutely terrifying, and then every time after that, you're like, well, these aren't really, these, almost angelic, terrifying things that, the Doctor is almost afraid of. They're kind of just a bunch of bureaucrats and politicians, and that's not nearly as fantastical or anything. Yeah. But I will say, I think this episode kind of keeps that a bit more, with the legends of Rassilon and the book, and the criminal that inspired the Doctor, and really the only other Time Lord we get in this episode is the Professor himself, and he's just,
unless the little guy in the bowler hat.
Yeah, we don't know.
We don't know for sure.
Yeah, and I guess that was the other thing, was what was her name? Claire. Yeah, that was it. That Claire somehow stumbled upon some sort of Time Lord technology in the Professor's office. So, because I did think about that. It's like, what if this office is actually a TARDIS? And I thought, well, does that mean they landed a TARDIS inside of a TARDIS or not? Or I almost thought like, oh, you have a key and there's just this little cabinet over there. Maybe you just open that cabinet and there just is a TARDIS on the inside.
Yeah. Didn't the meddling monks, at one point it was in a tomb and you had to bend over and crawl down into it?
Yeah. And then I think, wasn't it that the Doctor kept messing with the stabilizer or something?
Dimensional stabilizer.
Yeah, so he could barely get in or out of his TARDIS. The door kept shrinking on him. So that is actually, there's another episode with Peter Capaldi where the TARDIS basically shrinks down, and it shrinks down a little bit, and they get out and they're like, oh, well, this is a strange thing. We don't really know what's happening. And the Doctor goes back in, and his companion is on the outside, and it literally shrinks down to this size. And so they just open the door, but on the inside, it's exactly the same. So there's just a tiny door within the TARDIS. And so they just have to carry the TARDIS around while the Doctor's just in there kind of peeking out the door. So yeah, it is always funny when they kind of play with that a bit. So yeah, so far, very interesting story. I'm glad we got the episodic version. I think that's always better. Because also, I mean, if we had to watch the movie, I would have just split the movie about here at the halfway point. But the nice thing with the episodic version is still we can talk between all the episodes, which is a lot better. So yeah, you got anything else?
I got nothing.
Then that is basically it. With all that being said, we're Alex and Ned from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around any of those. There's a playlist for all of our Doctor Who reactions, classic reactions, as well as all modern reactions. There's just a bunch of Doctor Who reactions on screen. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.